Hello, everyone. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. It would really help the channel out quite a bit. Thank you very much.
The man behind the masterpiece. And behind the masterpiece today, Thomas Gainsborough, starring Ian Martin. In the late 18th century, two great English painters were the talk of London town. One was a great man named Sir Joshua Reynolds. The other painted beautiful people and beautiful landscapes. And his name was Thomas Gainsborough. Together they formed the leadership of the English school of painting. And yet, no two men seemed farther apart.
I tell you, gentlemen, Thomas Gainsborough's methods are the sketchiest approach to art I've ever seen. Nothing but superficial scratches and daubs on canvas. I say all the man is interested in is making money.
Mag!
Yes, dear.
Have you heard the drivel Reynolds laughing out about me?
What's that?
Why, that pack of stuffed shirts at the Royal Academy of Art couldn't copy a tree without having a flock of angels hovering over every limb. Interpretation. Huh! These are the life stories of the artists behind the masterpieces the world loves and cherishes. Presented each week at this time by a distinguished company of America's finest lady actors. From the masters of the Renaissance down through the years to our contemporary Americans, almost 5 centuries later, this series shows how these painters have given you, our listeners, a priceless heritage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, may we introduce Dr. Bernard Myers, eminent art critic, New York University lecturer. Our host for this period, Dr. Myers.
Thank you, James. In 18th century England, the England of Tom Gainsborough, a good many artists made a living painting portraits, what with business people, landowners, and others, so as to leave their likenesses for posterity. And it wasn't only in London that this happened, for Gainsborough had spent a good deal of his life painting pictures in the provinces, Hatton Garden, Ipswich, and the fashionable resort town of Bath. After several years of painting the elegant ladies and gentlemen of Bath, Gainsborough, by this time famous and a member of the Royal Academy, moved to London with his wife.
Good breakfast, Margaret, my love, a good breakfast. Good country ham, good country eggs, and a bit of country brook trout. Who could ask for more? Except perhaps to be able to live in the country.
English countryside. It's still an intriguing thought after all these years in the city, isn't it, Tom?
There's no place like the country, Mag. You know, if the blooming farmers had enough money to pay me a living painting their happy faces, I'd be there right now. Just a country at heart, I guess. Never get it out of these withering bones of mine.
Tom, you talk as though you were an old man.
Well, I'm no spring chicken, Mac. Seems to me I've been painting pictures for the better part of 100 years or so.
Well, maybe you're not the youngest artist in London anymore, but you're jolly well still the handsomest, darling.
Oh, I know, Maggie. You're only saying that to remind me in your subtle way that you're still my wife. And that I'm not to take the legend of Thomas Gainsborough's beautiful women too much hard, eh? Oh, my, it's sleepy out this morning. Wonderful party you had last night, Margaret.
We had. I didn't know a musician or an actor till I met you, and our house has been overrun with the lovable fools ever since we married.
But how much more fun they are, my sweet, than the so-called gentlemen of this urbane community.
You're a gentleman, Thomas Gainsborough, a natural-born gentleman, trained by nature to walk at ease with kings and paupers, duchesses and gallinades.
Repeat, and I insist that my kind of friends is more fun than that Reynolds crowd.
Oh, Tom, darling, if you're speaking again of the members of the Royal Academy of Art, don't you think it would be more gentlemanly to speak of them as the members of the Royal Academy of Art, rather than as that Reynolds crowd.
The Royal Academy of Art. Founded in 1768 for the purpose of cultivating and improving the arts of painting, sculpture, and architecture. Joshua Reynolds, my esteemed colleague, the old windbag, seems to be using it chiefly to improve and cultivate for Joshua Reynolds.
Are you jealous, Thomas?
I? Jealous of Josh Reynolds? Why, Mac. I have an inspiration. I understand that this afternoon the academicians are being addressed by none other than our long-winded friend, Joshua President.
As he's done scores of times before without the honor of your distinguished presence.
Yes, but by gad, Mag, I'm going to take the afternoon off and go to the academy meeting.
One of our colleagues, whose customary absence today precludes my mentioning his name, indulges in the excessive use of cold colors. In my opinion, gentlemen, the predominant colors in a picture must always be mellow and warm, the yellows, reds, and browns, and the blues, grays, and greens kept entirely out of large masses and be used only to support and set off these warm colors. This academy was founded for the purpose of creating a school of English painting based on the tradition of the great master, which is second to none. But one of our charter members is quite indifferent to our cause. He sits in his studio, paints all colors, sketching swiftly with all the light, bright, cold colors of a precocious schoolboy with a box of water paint, and he paints as fast as he can. Money, 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 sketch, slap, dog, next please. Nor does he paint what he sees. All duchesses must be beautiful, can they? Would you believe me, gentlemen, when I tell you, I beg your pardon, what this member of ours does? If the duchess is ugly, he sits her in the studio and does not look at her. Instead, he conjures up in his mind the most beautiful woman he can think of at the moment. Only when he has this image on the canvas does he then look at his well-paying subject and begin to sketch in a certain likeness to the lady in the studio. As soon as she begins to notice the resemblance, the slightest resemblance, he stops. There, my beautiful Duchess, he smiles at your portrait. 500 guineas, if you please. Next Duchess, please. Gentlemen, is that a contribution to English art? I ask you.
Hello, academician. May I have a word?
Member in the rear asks the floor.
Why, yes, Mr. President. Gainsborough. I could not help fancying a certain resemblance to the gentleman of your illustrations in Miss Terry. May I have a word?
Thomas Gainsborough has the floor.
As you are all probably aware, gentlemen, I do not go in for speech-making. I have never considered myself a learned man. On the contrary, I have always assumed that I'm the simplest of ordinary men, who happen to have been born with a knack of sketching and painting things as I see them, in such a way that many people want to pay money for the result. No, I'm not a learned man like our distinguished President Joshua. I beg your pardon, Sir Joshua Reynolds. I wouldn't read a deep book if you, if you paid me. But, gentlemen, I can see through some things. And I can see that our president doesn't much of the way I paint. Well, I'm not so sure I think much of the way he paints. A little old-fashioned, perhaps, but I'm a generous man. I happen to think there's room enough for two schools of thought in the English School of Painting, to which I heard reference made this afternoon. One last word, if you please. Now, Sir Joshua, you say it would never do to use, let us say, blue as the dominating tone in a picture. Well, gentlemen, Tomorrow I begin a portrait of a young man. And to show you just how silly these you are expounding are, I'll paint that boy in blue. I'll make the dominant color blue. There, after Jonathan Bottle, portrait is finished. There you are, blue boy. What do you think of it, Mag?
Oh, Thomas, it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what old Joshua Reynolds will say to that. Proof to his theories of art, say I. Oh, that the blue boy should be the sensation of the entire exhibition. The insufferable braggart. If I could only think of something to knock the cockiness out of him. So sure of himself, so unconcerned. So blasted independent. Yeah, driver, this house with the white front. Easy, Joshua. Thickness. Philip Thickness, Lieutenant Governor of Land Guard 4, Harwich.
Thickness. Oh, good afternoon, sir. What brings you to London?
That scoundrel Gainsborough. That's what brings me to London, Reynolds. I've had enough of nonsense, I have. I'm going to see the end of it, or know the reason why. That's what.
That scoundrel Gainsborough, you say? What the?
I see you caught onto him too, Reynolds? Scoundrel, I say. A veritable lie, yes. A common lie.
But, sir, what's an accusation to make? You're speaking about a charter member of the Royal Academy of Arts.
Do you presume to tell me who I'm talking about, Sir Joshua? Me, discoverer of this ingrate? What? Aye, Philip Thickness. Picked him out of nowhere. A little landscape painter in Subway and thrust fame upon him.
Sir, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't know? Apparently nobody knows. No, it doesn't even answer my letters. Listen, Sir Joshua. Over 15 years ago, I paid Gainsborough to paint a portrait of my wife. But do you think he's done it? No, he's been too busy.
You mean, sir, Gainsborough accepted payment for a commission to paint your wife and then never fulfilled his contract?
Yeah.
A member of the Academy? I can't believe it.
In the past 15 years, he's given me exactly 37 excuses for not doing it. 37. And since he's come up to London, I've written him again and again, asking him when he's going to do the portrait. And after one reply, stating he still can't, there's been nothing but silence. The ingrate ought to be thrown out of the Academy.
Tell me, sir, are you filing formal charges?
I hardly know what I'm doing. I'm angry at him.
It looks to me, sir, to be a clear-cut matter of ethics. Abominable trick you've had, Thickness. If we can prove these charges, sir, it won't be very long before Mr. Thomas Gainsborough will be thrown out of the Academy.
Before we return to the second half of the story of Thomas Gainsborough, your local announcer will tell you how you may obtain the fine color prints of Gainsborough and other great artists, which will increase your enjoyment of The Man Behind the Masterpiece. And now, back to The Man Behind the Masterpiece and the story of Thomas Gainsborough. Gainsborough was in serious trouble after Lieutenant Governor Thickness made charges before Sir Joshua Reynolds. He responded to Reynolds' summons and brought two witnesses to help in his defense. David Garrick, the famous actor, and Mrs. Siddons, the greatest actress of the time.
You say, Garrick, you knew this Thickness well in Bath.
Who in Bath doesn't know Philip Thickness, Sir Joshua? He never misses a party, and never misses a chance to tell that he was Gainsborough's first important patron. A Sir Joshua.
And you, Mrs. Sidney?
Oh, my dear Sir Joshua, it almost gives me a headache to think about it. I have never known such a puppy. Temptatious, irrepressible busybody, without the faintest concession, as British Your Majesty. He was responsible for Gainsborough moving to London in despair.
You're very sweet to say all those nice things, Mrs. Sidney.
Gainsborough, I'm shocked at you. This is a serious matter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This still does not answer the charge that you accepted a commission and did not complete it, even though you were paid for it. What do you have to say to that, Mr. Gainsborough?
Well, it's rather complicated, Reynolds. You see, years ago in Sudbury, Thickness asked me to paint a portrait of his wife. At first I thought I could do it, but, you don't know Mrs. Thickness, Reynolds. Even you couldn't paint her. Not if you have to have even the slightest sympathy with your subject, that is. She's impossible.
Impossible? You mean the great Gainsborough met a subject he couldn't paint? Fantastic.
Oh, tried, but I couldn't paint her. I couldn't create anything resembling beauty, just revulsion. I offered to pay Thickness back his money. I kept raising my offer, 100, 200, 500 guineas. Well, he wouldn't accept, so there was nothing more I could do.
I understand, Thomas. I'm sure Sir Joshua does, too.
The one thing I do understand is that Thomas Gainsborough, landscape artist and society painter extraordinary, could not paint something. Is that right, Gainsborough?
Oh, yes, that's right, Reynolds.
I say, Gainsborough, will you join the next meeting of the Academy members? I think we'll discuss portrait painting. Charges dismissed.
In February of 1788, Gainsborough met Sir Joshua Reynolds on the street. Had an important favor to ask of him.
Reynolds, I'd like to ask a rather special favor for the next Royal Academy exhibition.
You? A favor?
Yes.
The regulations of the Academy do not allow special favors for any of the members. But if it's just something small...
It is small, and I'm sure that you as president can arrange it if you choose to. And as you know, I've just completed a commission for the royal family. Now, all I want you to do, Reynolds, is to hang the picture 2 feet above its regulation position.
Quite impossible.
Now, look, Reynolds, do you think it would be granting too great a favor to His Majesty to give his portrait its proper setting at the exhibition?
The answer is no.
Reynolds, if the royal family painting which I have sent to the Academy exhibition is hung at the regulation height, I nevermore, whilst I breathe, will send a picture to the exhibition. This I swear by God.
Go right ahead, sir, and swear it will not do you one good.
Very well, Reynolds. You must hate me very much. But I shall keep my word. Never again will I.
What's the matter?
What? I can't.
Gainsborough, what's the matter?
No. Right now. I'm all right. Thank you, Reynolds. Just a little pain in my throat. Thanks. But I still keep my word. I'm through the Academy. Good day.
Yes, Gainsborough was through with the Academy. He lay on his bed for many months. It was to be his deathbed, for he had an incurable throat ailment. One day in August 1788, he said to his wife,
Meg, I wonder if Josh Reynolds would come to see me.
Joshua Reynolds? You want to see Sir Joshua Reynolds, Tom?
Yes, Meg. Does he hate me too much to come? Do you think so, Meg?
I don't think so, Thomas. We'll see.
You say he's very ill, Jack?
Very ill, Sir Joshua.
don't think he won't say much to have a visit him, to look at his paint.
That's so hard to understand.
Is it, Sir Joshua?
Huh? Oh, no, it isn't. Yes, if I were very ill, I'd ask for Tom Gainsborough.
Gainsborough, I owe you 1,000 apologies. Good wife has taken me all through the house. I have never seen such landscapes. Oh, those lovely old bridges, winding roadways, gnarled oaks, cattle grazing, the manifold beauties of quiet country life. There's nothing like them anywhere. You've done more for English painting, Gainsborough, than any other one man.
No, Reynolds. You're the man. Sounds good to hear you say it.
I don't know how you get those shimmering leaf effects.
You like them, huh? I'm glad. Why, they're wonderful.
You're the first English artist who loved the country for its own sake. I can see that now.
Well, we've both been working for the same thing, after all, haven't we, Reynolds? The art of England.
From different points of view.
You must rest now, Tom.
Yes, I'll rest now. Oh, I'm proud of my wife. She's the most beautiful lady I ever painted, Reynolds. Proud that I knew you, Joshua. Proud I could paint England's countryside and English people the way I saw it.
Goodbye, Tom, dear.
He rejoiced in the appearance of things. If they were cleanly formed, or subtly colored, or beautifully lit, or interestingly combined. He didn't care about meanings or intentions, and neither looked for them in nature nor made them the basis of his art. What he first painted will make the art of England easier for those who follow.
I'll miss him so.
So will I, Mrs. Gainsborough. So will England.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here is Dr. Bernard Myers.
If we knew nothing of Gainsborough's life, and we were to look at the masterful elegance of his portraits, it would be hard enough for us to imagine that he himself was so different from those aristocratic creations. Our picture of the week, Gainsborough's portrait of Mrs. Grace Dalrymple Elliott, from the original at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, is in some ways more interesting than his average portrait. If you look carefully at your color print of Mrs. Elliott, it will be apparent that we are dealing with a woman who doesn't have the obvious charm of many of Gainsborough's subjects. But we feel no hesitation in pronouncing her handsome, dignified, aristocratic, suave, and polished. In this elegantly elongated figure, Gainsborough has created a type of smooth and glossy drapery appropriate to the general manner of his execution. Mrs. Elliott did not perhaps have obvious charm, but the artist has managed to take an apparently plain woman and transform her into something beautiful. Whether or not he was justified in his practice is another matter entirely. But if there is any fault, it doesn't lie entirely with Tom Gainsborough, but rather with the age in which he lived and the clients who sat for him. Obviously, they were satisfied, and they were the ones who gave him a living. Had he been able to make a living painting landscapes, the story might have been different. But since that wasn't possible, we have to try to understand the demand to which he was responding. Whichever style we prefer, the Renaissance manner of Reynolds or the more modern courtliness of Gainsborough's paintings, between them they sum up the century in which they lived.
Friends, in just a moment, Dr. Bernard Myers will be back to tell you about next week's episode in The Man Behind the Masterpiece series. Right now, here's an important message from another friend.
This is Bernard Myers again, friend. Next, we'll bring you the story of the most prolific painter who ever lived, Joseph Mallard William Turner, a tumultuous artist who became England's most famous painter during the early 19th century. Hi, everybody.
Be sure to listen next week, same time, same station, when the man behind the masterpiece brings you the exciting story of an exciting man, Joseph Mallard William Turner. The man behind the masterpiece was by Milton Olin, produced and directed by Mitchell Grayson. The cast for Gainsborough's story included Ian Martin, starring as Gainsborough, Ala Gerald as Margaret Gainsborough, House Jim as Sir Joshua Reynolds, and William Podmore as Lieutenant Governor Sickness. Original music by John Gott. Hugh James speaking.